It started the way all insane rumors do, a half-baked tweet, probably fired off by some basement dweller deep in a conspiracy rabbit hole. Kanye bought 300 square miles in the middle of the desert. Building his own country. Religion. Future culture. No joke. #Yeland. At first, no one took it seriously. Just another day on the internet. But then, the breadcrumbs started to appear. Satellite images leaked, blurry but unmistakable, of a vast stretch of land in a remote region somewhere between Oman and Ethiopia. The land was empty, save for the strange gridwork that had begun to appear, spirals within spirals, geometric pathways carved into the earth, some pointing directly at the sky. Reports trickled out, construction crews being flown in on private jets, no passports stamped, no records kept. The workers were reportedly paid in cash, gold, or something even weirder, artifacts, like ancient coins or crystals. It was Kanye, the sources all said. Not just buying land, but shaping it into something new. Something no one had ever seen before. The invitation. Word got around that only the elect would be invited, a curated council of artists, spiritual leaders, technologists, and visionaries. But it wasn't just about fame or fortune. Some A-listers got snubbed entirely. Others, obscure painters from small villages in South America, monks who had never seen a smartphone, received mysterious black envelopes with only a gold-embossed Y and a set of coordinates. The invite was rumored to come with a single phrase printed inside. "Your mind belongs to tomorrow." Every guest was required to leave their old name behind. In Yeland, you were reborn with a name given by Ye himself, a name derived from a ritual where Kanye would meditate with you, read your aura, and whisper the name that matched your soul's frequency. Rumor had it some walked out weeping, others laughing uncontrollably, others unable to speak for days. And then there was the religion. It was neither fully Christian nor fully esoteric, yet it drew on both, a shimmering fusion of biblical prophecy, ancient mystery school teachings, and what Kanye called the vibrations of the unborn future. There were sermons held beneath domes that echoed with auto-tuned chants. They spoke of God's original algorithm, a divine code buried beneath reality itself, waiting to be unlocked through music, geometry, and collective spiritual awakening. Jesus was still central, but here, Jesus was also a time traveler. A code breaker. A being who spoke through frequencies instead of words, and whose true message had been corrupted by centuries of noise. Kanye positioned himself not as the Messiah, but as the decoder, the one destined to remix the divine signal for the 21st century and beyond. The people of Yeland prayed to creation, painting, coding, designing, dancing, believing each act of creativity was a fractal prayer that rippled through the cosmic web. Yeland's architecture made headlines even before the first journalists were banned. Buildings were said to breathe, literal living structures, with walls that shimmered between organic and digital, surfaces that pulsed with light and sound as if the buildings themselves were participating in Kanye's music. Some said they responded to human emotion, glowing soft blue when people were at peace, deep crimson when arguments broke out. Water systems weren't just functional, they were sacred circulations, tied into rituals of cleansing and transformation. Before entering any space of significance, residents had to pass through the flow, a series of waterfalls infused with sound frequencies tuned to the Schumann resonance, the so-called heartbeat of Earth. Every drop of water was blessed. There were no prisons in Yeland. Instead, those who broke the laws, though no one outside knew what those laws were sent into the reflection zones, vast mirrored chambers where they were forced to confront holographic projections of their own subconscious fears until they healed. What had once sounded like a social media fever dream got real fast when leaked documents showed back-channel conversations between Kanye's inner circle and several small nations, mostly in Africa and the Middle East. They weren't just buying land, they were negotiating autonomy. Kanye wanted Yeland recognized as a sovereign creative state, with its own passports, its own laws, even its own calendar. The Yeland calendar was said to be nonlinear, following the spirals of creative cycles rather than months and years. Time in Yeland would move in rhythms, not seconds. Some countries balked. The idea was too strange, too disruptive. But others, drawn by the promise of economic windfalls or seduced by the sheer audacity of Kanye's vision, entered negotiations. One unnamed Gulf state allegedly offered to lease an entire island for Kanye's experiment, provided they could retain mineral rights beneath it. Rumors swirled about the choir, a secretive inner circle within Yeland's population. They were both spiritual leaders and enforcers, tasked with maintaining harmony within the territory. Each member of the choir wore a reflective mask, part Venetian carnival, part sci-fi, which allegedly allowed Kanye to see through their eyes at any time. It was said the masks also allowed the choir to sense lies, picking up micro-vibrations and speech patterns that revealed when someone's soul was out of alignment. No one knew what happened to those found unworthy. Some said they were banished to the desert, left to wander until they were ready to create again. Others claimed they were absorbed into the song, a permanent part of Yeland's collective frequency, their essence becoming a note in the ever-evolving soundtrack of the nation. The world only got its first real look at Yeland when a drone operator, working for an independent media outlet, managed to slip past the perimeter. The footage, before the drone mysteriously lost signal, showed impossible landscapes, levitating sculptures, vast reflecting pools that bent light into holograms, and Kanye himself, standing on a circular platform, arms outstretched, a crown made of fiber optic cables glowing on his head. The caption? "We are the bridge." That was the last anyone saw before Yeland disconnected, severing all satellite and internet connections, sealing itself off from the outside world. All anyone knew after that came from whispers, former residents who escaped, or were exiled, each telling conflicting stories. Some called it heaven. Others called it a cult. Some said Yeland was alive, its very ground humming with some alien intelligence Kanye had tapped into, the frequency of creation itself. Where the truth ends and the myth begins, no one knows. But the rumors persist. Yeland isn't just a place. It's an idea. A frequency waiting for those who can hear it. And Kanye? He's still out there, somewhere, remixing reality one beat at a time. After Yeland vanished from all public communication, rumors only grew louder. Hackers, conspiracy theorists, and exiled tech workers all claimed to have intercepted pieces of the e-gospel, a living document supposedly written in encrypted sound waves, melodies and beats that, when decoded, laid out Kanye's ultimate prophecy. At the core of it was the spiral, a symbol Kanye had been fixated on for years. The spiral was more than just a shape. It was the mathematical language of creation itself, the fingerprint of divine intelligence that stretched from the Fibonacci sequence to the structure of galaxies. According to Kanye's teachings, all past religions were merely fragments, corrupted echoes, of this primal knowledge. Yeland, in Kanye's mind, was to be the first place on Earth fully aligned with the spiral's code, a spiritual motherboard, where creativity, prayer, and technology fused into a single, endless act of creation. Every building, every path, even the invisible frequencies saturating the air were designed to tune human consciousness to the spiral's frequency. To live in Yeland was to live inside the song of creation itself. But there was a darker side. The frequency wars. Leaked documents suggested that Yeland wasn't just about building a utopia, it was about protecting it. Kanye believed that Earth was under constant assault from the anti-frequency, a global hum of discord pumped into the airwaves by governments, corporations, and hidden powers designed to scramble human creativity and cut us off from the divine source. Every ad jingle, every algorithmic playlist, every 808 beat you heard on the radio, all of it was part of a sonic war waged against human imagination. Kanye's belief wasn't just that music could change the world. It was that music already was the world, a fundamental fabric reality was made from. Control the music, you control the mind. Control the mind, you control creation itself. Yeland was built to be a sanctuary from the anti-frequency, its borders sealed by something Kanye's engineers called the resonance shield, an invisible field of harmonic sound waves that allegedly repelled outside interference. The shield wasn't just to keep Yeland's residents safe. It was to preserve the purity of the spiral's song, untainted by the noise of the dying world. At the heart of Yeland's leadership was the Esoteric Council, a group of 12 individuals personally selected by Kanye, each representing a facet of creative divinity. The poet, the prophet, the coder, the dancer, the dreamer, the seer. Their identities were hidden behind elaborate masks, each mask embedded with resonance crystals Kanye claimed were excavated from pre-human ruins somewhere in Ethiopia. These crystals weren't just decoration. They were transmitters, tuned to ancient frequencies. The voices of the first creators, Kanye called them. Members of the council were said to be in constant communion with these ancestral frequencies, receiving guidance not from Kanye himself, but from something older, something that had been waiting, watching, until humanity was ready to hear it again. And Kanye? He wasn't a king or a prophet, not exactly. He was more like a conductor, guiding the council, the land, and even the very atmosphere into harmonic alignment. At least, that was the story the faithful told. Then came the Black Sky event. It happened one night, exactly 3 years after Yeland sealed itself off. Satellite surveillance, what little could still peek through the resonance shield, captured a brief, terrifying image, the sky over Yeland turning pitch black, not like night, but like the sky itself had been erased, replaced by a void that seemed to consume even light. For exactly 7 minutes, every radio signal on Earth, from FM to military comms, pulsed with a strange, rhythmic tone. Some called it a heartbeat. Others said it sounded like auto-tune chanting, voices layered on top of voices, millions strong. And then it stopped. When the skies cleared, Yeland was gone. Not destroyed. Not evacuated. Just absent. The land where it had stood was still there, but the buildings, the people, even the spiral carvings in the earth were erased as if they had never been there at all. The only thing left behind was a single, glowing wire burned into the rock, pulsing faintly like a dying ember. Months later, strange figures started to appear around the world, the returnees. These were people who had been in Yeland, now back in the outside world, but they were different. They spoke in fragmented poetry, their eyes seemed to shimmer with gold when hit by sunlight, and they could hum melodies that caused nearby electronics to glitch and flicker. Some were artists who painted spirals in public squares until they collapsed from exhaustion. Others were coders who, in trances, wrote entire programs they couldn't understand, programs that, when run, produced nothing but sound files filled with unearthly music. A few were found standing perfectly still for days, gazing at the sky, their bodies slowly vibrating until they simply dissolved into sound and light. Every returnee carried the same tattoo somewhere on their body, a spinning spiral Y, moving beneath their skin like liquid metal. Conspiracy boards lit up with theories, the most persistent being that Yeland had ascended. Not disappeared, not destroyed, but transitioned into a higher harmonic state. The entire nation had slipped through the cracks in reality, vibrating at a frequency the human eye couldn't see, a living song, echoing somewhere just outside the edge of perception. Some believed Kanye had found what he was looking for, the ultimate remix, the final blend of flesh, frequency, and divinity. Others whispered darker things, that Yeland had become a beacon, a cosmic call sign, summoning whatever ancient intelligence first wrote the spiral into the bones of the universe. The faithful believe Yeland will return, not as a place, but as a vibration, a frequency anyone, anywhere, can tune into if they open their minds, quiet the noise, and listen for the voice of the conductor. And Kanye? No one knows. Some say he's still out there, a ghost in the frequency, whispering to dreamers in their sleep, teaching them fragments of the song so that when Yeland returns, the world will be ready to harmonize. Because Yeland isn't just a country. It's the future. And the future is music. They called themselves the Dissonant Ones, though most just referred to them as the Resistance. They were the forgotten, the artists, scientists, and seekers Kanye invited but ultimately rejected. Some were turned away at Yeland's gates for reasons they were never told. Others were exiled from within after failing the resonance trials, their personal frequencies deemed incompatible with the spiral's code. To Kanye, they were static, noise that couldn't be tuned. But to themselves? They were the last line of defense against the spiral consuming everything. The first members were scattered across continents: painters from Tokyo, sound engineers from Berlin, shamans from the Andes. At first, they didn't even know they were part of something bigger. All they had were fragments, a melody stuck in the back of their heads, half-remembered rituals, visions of spirals spinning in reverse, unraveling reality instead of harmonizing it. It wasn't until the Black Sky event, when Yeland vanished and the world briefly trembled with that strange harmonic pulse, that they all received the same message, transmitted through their dreams. The spiral is incomplete. Reversal must begin. It was signed, St. Pablo. In the years after Yeland's disappearance, the resistance formed an underground network, a hidden society of dissonant artists, rogue technologists, and spiritual dissidents. Their mission wasn't just to resist Yeland, it was to decode the spiral's dark side, the hidden frequencies Kanye either ignored or suppressed. They believed Kanye had only found half the truth, that the spiral wasn't just a pattern of creation, but also destruction. For every harmony, there was a counter-vibration, a cosmic dissonance that kept the universe from collapsing into perfect stillness. Without dissonance, creation couldn't breathe. It couldn't evolve. It would lock itself into a feedback loop, spiraling into a singular note, a note so pure it would erase everything else. To the Dissonant Ones, Yeland's final goal wasn't ascension, it was annihilation through perfection. A cosmic whiteout, a universe so finely tuned to the spiral that all chaos, all uncertainty, all life outside the code would be erased. If Yeland's resonance shield was designed to repel the anti-frequency, the noise of the broken world, the Dissonant Ones were working on something far riskier. The countersignal, a sound wave designed not to block the spiral, but to disrupt it from within. It wouldn't destroy Yeland if it returned, but it would fracture it, introducing dissonance into the perfect harmony Kanye sought to achieve. It was less of a weapon and more of a cosmic tuning fork, shaking loose the cracks Kanye had ignored, forcing the spiral to acknowledge imperfection, or collapse trying to deny it. But there was a catch. The countersignal couldn't just be played. It had to be lived. The Dissonant Ones weren't just working on a piece of music, they were becoming the song itself. Through body modification, neural implants, and esoteric rituals, they were gradually rewiring their own flesh and minds to vibrate at the countersignal's frequency. Their very existence would be the dissonance, walking, breathing reminders that no creation can survive if it denies its own chaos. They called it the living static. The first real clash came in what would later be called the frequency skirmish of Tangier, a quiet, almost unnoticed battle that played out in the middle of an electronic music festival in Morocco. The Dissonant Ones had tracked down one of the returnees, a former Yeland spiritual coder who had resurfaced, half-mad, mumbling bits of the spiral's code. The resistance didn't want to kill him, they wanted to deprogram him, to loosen the spiral's grip on his mind. But the returnees were never alone. When the resistance activated the countersignal, a low, guttural hum hidden beneath the bass of a live DJ set, the air itself seemed to split. The sky darkened, not with the void of the Black Sky event, but with something worse. The choir had arrived. The choir weren't just spiritual enforcers inside Yeland. They were frequency assassins, able to detect any breach in the spiral's harmony no matter where it happened. Their bodies were rumored to be embedded with the very crystals Kanye had once used to build Yeland's infrastructure, making them walking antennas for the spiral's song. The festival's sound system became a battleground. Every beat, every bass drop, became a duel between the spiral and the countersignal. Lights pulsed erratically, screens glitched into spirals and eyes, and some festival-goers collapsed, bleeding from their ears, caught between two clashing realities. The returnee? He dissolved into light, pulled back into Yeland's hidden frequency before the Dissonant Ones could save him. But something else happened, too. One of the choir faltered. Her mask cracked, her body briefly flickering between flesh and shimmering spiral code. For just a moment, her voice broke free of the spiral, and she screamed, a real, human scream, before vanishing into thin air. The resistance didn't win that battle. But they knew they could fight. As the years passed, the Dissonant Ones refined the countersignal, and their bodies. They created secret resonance havens, safe zones hidden across the globe where the spiral's influence was deliberately disrupted, places where creativity could flourish unchained from the code. In these havens, no creation was perfect, no melody complete, and that was the point. Their ultimate goal? To hijack the next return of Yeland. Every Dissonant One knew Yeland wasn't gone forever. The spiral couldn't resist reaching back into the physical world. The creative tension between Earth's chaos and Yeland's purity was too strong. One day, Yeland would bleed back through, buildings appearing in the desert, returnees hearing the call, the choir stepping back into human space. And when that happened, the Dissonant Ones would be waiting. They would walk into Yeland not as enemies, but as living imperfections, vibrating at the countersignal's core. They would plant dissonance like seeds, forcing Yeland to either accept chaos into its creation, or collapse under the weight of its own impossible perfection. Some say Kanye knows they're coming. That even from wherever he is, merged with the spiral, a ghost in the song, he's aware of the dissonance forming at the edges of his perfect world. Some believe he welcomes it. That deep down, Kanye has always known no masterpiece is ever complete. That the greatest remix isn't about control. It's about surprise. And maybe, just maybe, Kanye left the door open on purpose. Because even the spiral needs a little chaos to keep the beat alive. It self-hummed, every grain of sand vibrating in perfect harmony. The Dissonant Ones stood at the edge, silent, breathing in time with the earth, their bodies humming with the countersignal. They didn't march. They didn't shout. They just stepped forward, walking into the spiral's heart, not to destroy it, but to leave a single, imperfect note inside its endless song. Somewhere, deep in the code of reality, a beat skipped. And for the first time, the spiral danced.